Hello and welcome to the Sustainable Spotlights webinar series. My name is Alex and I'm an associate with the Global Compact Network Canada. Today we are lucky that TELUS will be hosting a webinar on advancing social impact. TELUS has been recognized for their sustainable efforts and specifically been ranked as Canada's greenest employer, as well as Canada's top 50 socially responsible corporations, just to name a few. Next, I'll go over some housekeeping regarding the webinar. Please, first, a reminder to keep yourself on mute unless you have something to say. It's both distracting for the listener and speaker, so please be mindful. If you have any questions, feel free to ask throughout the presentation, or if you would like to utilize a chat box, we'll be checking that regularly, so thank you. Now I'm delighted to introduce Jeff Pegg, the Director of Sustainability at TELUS. So on behalf of the Global Compact Network Canada, I would like to thank TELUS and Jeff for putting this webinar together. And without further ado, please welcome Jeff Pegg.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. And I guess sorry for any technical difficulties here at the beginning. So I'm going to spend some time today just talking about TELUS's sustainability strategy, our social purpose. And on the very last slide, I just have some practical tips and information on how we integrate sustainability in our social purpose here at TELUS. And as was mentioned in the introduction, please feel free to stop and ask any questions as we move through. I'd be happy to answer any questions as we go along, and there should be time at the end for questions as well. Okay, in terms of the agenda, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the importance of sustainability and the business case for it at TELUS, and then share with you our social purpose and social impact goals with some proof points, taking a look at some of our objectives for 2020, and then, like I said, we'll touch on some of the ways in which we try to advance our social purpose and meet our social impact goals. Okay, so the importance of sustainability, and we look at this as social challenges that exist here in Canada, but also risks. And, you know, as an organization, there are global risks that are real. There are local risks, and we can define local as you want to, but in our case, we'll look at Canada. And then there's also sometimes industry-specific risk. But in this case, we're just looking at focusing in on Canada and the risks that exist. So 3 million Canadians don't have access to the internet. Hard to believe, but true. We obviously have climate change being a very critical problem. It's water cooler talk. It's important. The Paris Accord is a daily topic of conversation. It's impacting us. We've seen it through many disasters that have occurred globally and in Canada. I'm just going to remind people to go on mute because there seems to be a bit of background noise. In terms of healthcare, $80 billion is the cost of chronic disease management on Canadian society. TELUS is in the healthcare space, and many people know us as a internet, TV, home phone provider in the West, a mobility provider across the country, but we're also Canada's largest healthcare IT organization as well. 1 in 4 children in Canada still living below the poverty line, and disturbingly, 1 in 2 Canadian children have experienced some form of cyberbullying. These are social challenges. These are risks that exist in the Canadian landscape, and it underlines the importance for organizations such as TELUS to be committed to doing our part to address these challenges. In terms of the case for sustainability at TELUS, what you see on the screen here is just a different lens for the business case. From a customer perspective, Our own internal surveys tell us that 45% of Canadian consumers are much more likely to use us due to our commitment to our communities. Cone Communications does regular studies which contain the next couple of proof points that 90% of consumers would switch to a brand with positive social or environmental causes, and 88% will remain loyal to those brands. That's a strong business case for being a sustainable organization. In terms of our communities, we're investing capital in our operations and technology. We're creating employment. One of the most interesting things in terms of our communities from some of our pilot projects is for those who we provide grants to, they're able to receive an additional 150% in funding from other partners as a result of our grants to these organizations through our community boards. In terms of a team member perspective, the business case for sustainability is really about attracting and retaining the best and brightest employees. You can see some statistics here in terms of how powerful it is to be a sustainable organization. I think this is more important as well for the younger generations, as they increasingly want to match their own personal values with the values of the organizations in which they work. It's very important to us. In terms of technology, we've invested in data centers with power usage efficiency that's at the top of the range, 80% more efficient than traditional data centers. Our technology is enabling connections to schools and hospitals, emergency services, and small business in many communities. We have a program called Work Styles, where employees are able to work when and where it's most convenient for them. In 2016 alone, we saved 106 million kilometers and 2.1 million hours of commuting by our team members, by allowing them to work from home or otherwise. In terms of a business lens, lease savings by being able to reduce our real estate footprint. I'll skip to that because it's very tied into our Work Styles program. And we have increased sales forecasts that are aligned to the cause marketing initiatives that we employ here at TELUS. And in 2016 alone, $64 million in business contract growth that are attributed to our community investment commitment. So you can see some powerful statistics and numbers here that make the business case for sustainability and our social goals here at TELUS. What I wanted to share with you here in the next few slides is just a bit of background and context on how we view our future-friendly story. So the Future is Friendly has been in our marketing and advertising campaigns for the past nearly 20 years now. And we sort of put together a few snapshots that we do share in our sustainability report and otherwise in public, just to give a bit of context around the way in which we see our future-friendly story. And it starts out by some words that really elevate our #1 corporate priority, which is really putting our customers first. That's core to what we do here at TELUS. It's a focus for every single member of our organization, where we're looking to not only provide the products and services and access and connectivity that consumers desire, but to provide great customer service and reliability across all our product suite. So tied into that focus on putting our customers first is really a consistent vision that we've had since the year 2000, which is really unleashing the power of the internet to deliver solutions to Canadians at home or at work or mobile. Then this is underpinned by a set of values, core corporate values, that we have here at TELUS, that focusing on our courage to innovate, that we have a passion for growth, that we embrace change, and that we do believe in spirited teamwork and collaboration across our diverse and inclusive team. And then really in terms of our social purpose, this is a good summary. It's also provided the framework for our most recent sustainability report. Shameless plug, I hope you have a chance to take a look through it if you haven't already at sustainability.telus.com. But really in terms of our social purpose, it's about bridging digital divides. It's enabling remarkable health outcomes, protecting our environment and the planet for our children, advancing educational opportunities for future leaders, and keeping people safe in our digital world. It's incumbent upon us as an internet service provider from a wireline and wireless perspective to make sure that our kids and others have the tools to be safe in our digital world. And then our long-term program belief of giving where we live. We believe in championing social change, being compassionate, and then leveraging our technology and focusing in on youth to help rise above and reach their full potential. So these words have been inspired by our CEO, and the reason that I say that is that strong commitment at our executive level inspires team members to want to live these values and take action on delivering on our social purpose. What I want to share here now is really the core to our sustainability strategy in terms of our social purpose, and then I'll share the goals here in a bit. But building on what you just saw there, these are the core pillars, for lack of a better word, of our overall sustainability strategy, focusing in on our digital economy and bridging the social, economic, and geographic digital divides. In terms of healthcare, advancing wellness through better health information, and that's really focusing in our primary healthcare ecosystem, connecting doctors and patients and pharmacists. In terms of our environment, we believe passionately, and my team specifically works on a number of environmental initiatives, and I'm proud to lead some of those initiatives, particularly in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions through energy efficiency programs and the like. In terms of education, really focusing in on keeping kids safe online, privacy and trust, and this is something that in terms of our material issues is always at the top. Canadians really value protecting and respecting their privacy and information, and it's a critical focus for us at TELUS. And in terms of our community, I spoke about that, but we really believe in investing and giving our time and our hearts and our wallets for team members and for TELUS as a whole to give back to our communities. What I thought I'd do next is maybe just dive a little deeper into each of those pillars and just share with you how we view not only the social challenges associated with our objective, but the goals and focusing in on the business opportunities that it provides, and then we have a little bit of sharing of some of the progress that we've made over the last number of years. Really the challenge here in terms of bridging the digital divide, I'm struggling with that today, tripping over my tongue. This divide, and it could be socioeconomic, it could be geographic, it really prevents the number of citizens from fully participating in our growing digital economy, particularly with access to healthcare, education, business, and government service. when I was reflecting on this, I came across an article, a recent article produced by the CBC, that really let us know like 6 million Canadians are living in rural areas. And it really means that only 85% of those Canadians living in these rural areas have access to the internet, meaning about 1 million people don't have broadband access in these rural communities. Overall, it's quite a powerful statement. So we've been laying fiber for deploying our pure fiber for quite some time now, and we continue to do so, and it will remain a focus in the coming years. And sorry, can you hear me? I had a beep in my ear there. I'll just continue. Some of the examples of our progress include connecting 49 of these rural communities. And we've been able to also, in terms of bridging the socioeconomic divide, we've launched a program called Internet for Good, where we've partnered with the province of British Columbia in 2016, and coming in 2016, the province of Alberta is providing a low-cost internet for individuals who are on disability pensions through the provincial government. And it's something that we're proud to do. We've partnered with other organizations in terms of providing hardware as well. And it's a fantastic program that is helping us bridge some of these digital divides that exist. In terms of enabling better health outcomes, we really have...
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think it was pretty neat how you said you partnered with the government of British Columbia for that initiative. Just out of curiosity, and I think because partnerships and social impact go hand in hand, how did that start? Did you reach out to the government, or like how did that collaboration kind of come to fruition?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So first of all, I will tell you that it took a long time. So I believe 5 or 6 years ago is when we first reached out. And at first it was with the federal government. And we learned a lot in a lot of those dialogues. And then the suggestion was that we work with the provincial ministries. And so we started in British Columbia. And we had to get around, I think there was almost a universal agreement that this would be a great thing to do. However, there was a lot of logistics that needed to be considered, including how you manage the system from a practical point of view. So who would qualify, and also tied in with that is the privacy issues in terms of who these individuals are, and if they're beneficiaries of government programs, then there are some personal information and privacy issues that had to be dealt with. So it took quite some time and a lot of work, but I think that, when we did approach the governments, that there was an acceptance that this would be a great thing to do, and it just took some time to work through some of the logistics. What we learned in British Columbia, we've been able to take over to our program in Alberta, and also we've just recently launched a program called Mobility for Good as well. So we're taking the learnings and bringing them forward. Cool. But it's always good to have great partners, whether they be with like-minded businesses or NGOs or governments in this case.
Great, thanks so much.
No problem. Okay, so on to our next pillars around enabling better health outcomes. I think we know that we have a very complex healthcare system. We have increasing rates of of chronic disease across the country. And what we're hoping to do is leverage our technology to be able to better share information digitally between consumers and their healthcare providers, which includes doctors and pharmacists. And one of the things that we can also do is provide this access to, again, rural and remote communities through technology. Programs such as home health monitoring, where through video and through other technology that people can be in the comfort of their homes and having access to healthcare practitioners. And I should say that this also can be leveraged for mental health issues as well. We do have a number of programs that can connect those that are suffering from mental illness with the healthcare practitioners from the comfort of their home as well.
I'm gonna chip in again. I think, because I know
Sure.
mental health is a big issue among millennials, and especially with workforce and corporations paying for benefits. So just out of curiosity, where are you kind of in that process of combining kind of the traditional, more physical symptoms to the ones related to mental health? Is that a transition you're trying to make, or have you transitioned into that area?
I think we're beginning to, yes, and it's just about figuring out the ways in which our technology can increase, again, that flow of information and the dialogues between the healthcare practitioners and the consumers. I was just given a high-level briefing on a program that's out there that's being piloted in terms of, again, sort of that option for connecting through video or only audio to a healthcare practitioner, whether it be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or whatever the case may be, from a patient who wants to chat and may want to have face-to-face over video or not. They may want to be just in the comfort of their homes and talk to someone. And so it's really about matching the needs in the healthcare system with the technology that we can enable.
Exactly.
And, I don't think that there's any. I think the world is our oyster, and where is their demand and how can we enable that? And we have people all over the country. We have different healthcare systems, regional healthcare system, provincially. There's differences, et cetera. And I think technology can help bridge a lot of those potential barriers to getting quality access to healthcare, and fast and when you need it as well. So I would say there's no difference between physical and mental health. It's healthcare, and I think it's about matching the technology to help those in need.
Yeah, very cool. Even if you think about reach for kind of some of the northern communities in Canada as well, because they lack lots of social services that are required. So using that technology piece could definitely bridge the gap. So I think that's an awesome initiative. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we have a video out there on YouTube about a pilot that we're running in terms of home health monitoring in the Yukon. So I encourage you to seek that out. And I believe we've attached a similar story in our stories section of our sustainability report this year.
Wow. Thanks again.
Oh, you bet. Now, in terms of, call it future-proofing our environment, the impacts of climate change are adding significant costs. Canadians are demanding action from governments and also from business. Businesses are key to helping address this need. We also have the ongoing and increasing resource scarcity. We have rising energy costs across the country for consumers and for business, and we're looking to do our part there. Not only in terms of addressing climate change, but being good stewards of our natural habitats as well. We believe we've been exploring some opportunities with respect to renewable energy in order to from a business perspective, help mitigate these rising energy costs and volatility of supply. We've also found a lot of benefit in terms of sustainable procurement practices, in terms of partnering with like-minded organizations as well that are respecting the environment, whether it comes to paper as a great example of that. And you can see some examples of our progress there too. I mean, there's tangible savings in terms of reducing our overall footprint. And in TELUS's case, it's our buildings and our network that make up the vast majority of our greenhouse gas footprint. These programs since 2010 have resulted in a 17.5% absolute reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions over the past 6 years. We are at an 83% waste diversion rate with a 90% goal, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And we're investing in green buildings. For those of you who have had the opportunity to see our new head office at TELUS Garden in downtown Vancouver, it's a LEED Platinum building. Takes advantage of a district energy system that a neighboring network building, we capture the waste heat from our servers and use it to both heat and cool our commercial tower, and requiring less energy overall. And if any of you do get out to Vancouver, I'd be happy to take you on a tour of the building, so you can reach out to me at any time. In terms of transforming education, I mean, really what we're looking at is focusing in on that sort of abuse of technology, cyberbullying or harassing online, including even some children in particular with a technology addiction. We have developed a program called TELUS WISE, WISE Internet and Smartphone Education. And really what this program focuses in on is just educating youth about staying safe online. We lead discussions in schools or in community centers through volunteerism to lead discussions about internet and smartphone safety. It's really designed to help us and our families and our communities to be safe from cyberbullying and even things such as online criminal activity, such as financial fraud. We provide education and a wealth of online safety resources. And if you're in one of our communities that we serve, you can reach out, and one of our TELUS WISE ambassadors would be happy to come out and talk to your school or organization. Conscious of time, so I'm going to move along here. In terms of investing in our communities, we have community boards. We have 17 of them globally, and what they do is within our mandate of supporting healthcare, education, protecting the environment through our focus in on youth. The community boards are made up of community members that decide where and when TELUS's philanthropic donations can be the most effective. Over the years, we've donated nearly $500 million to local charities through this programs. We impact 2.1 million youth through these community board funding initiatives. We also encourage We Give Where We Live within our corporate culture. And since 2000, we've had $7.5 million of volunteer service. In fact, this year we've had a very aspirational goal, and you may have seen this in social media, but we're looking to have 1 million hours of team members, their friends and family, and others give in the communities in which they work and live and serve. Now, I've touched on this in a couple of instances of so what are our goals associated with these pillars. So our intention is to connect 140 communities through our fiber build by 2020. We're about a third of the way there so far, just so you know. In terms of healthcare, we want to be the #1 technology leader in the primary healthcare ecosystem. As I said, we have grown over the years and are currently the largest IT healthcare provider. And we want to continue to make that impact grow and get pharmacists, doctors, consumers on board with our technologies to improve healthcare outcomes. We have goals. I mentioned we were at 17.5% as of the end of 2016. Our goal is to have 25% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 based on 2010 levels, and 90% waste diversion, of which we're at 83, as I mentioned earlier. In terms of education, we have school tours around encouraging our youth to become volunteers in their communities. We want to reach 7.5 million Canadians through our TELUS Wise program. We are at the end of 2016, we're at 1.7 million. So these are aspirational goals. And through our community programs, for which we are getting better and better at measuring our impact, we want to have given upwards of 600 million to local charities by 2020. Now, we are a public company, and yes, we serve our communities in addressing these social challenges, but we also have a responsibility at the same time to provide value for our business, for the Canadian economy, and our society, but also our shareholders as well. Well, what we've seen for sure is there's a growing demand, of course, for our climate-related financial disclosure and carbon accounting. We know that there's an increasing number of investors that are focused in on the sustainability performance of organizations. We can see that sustainability performance as measured by DJSI and the Carbon Disclosure Project have been added to investor research tools in the past few years. And we know this is a growing area of importance. And as you can see, we see that there's great opportunity across these pillars for TELUS as a business as well, that will be able to deliver this value. I want to take the last few minutes before opening it up to questions just to talk about some of the ways in which we, I believe, have been so far successful on our journey. Now, believe me, we have a long ways to go as an organization in terms of communicating what our social purpose is, ensuring that that definition is shared amongst team members and also our other stakeholders. But some of the ways in which we have done this is, I think, built a strong governance culture around sustainability and social purpose at TELUS. We have a sustainability index in our corporate scorecard that includes a number of measures in terms of investing time in our communities, our energy use and greenhouse gas reductions, waste goals, our real estate footprint goals, a number of sustainability criteria within that index, and that impacts every team member's pay. And it's something that took a long time to make happen, but we're happy that it's there, and so everyone has a stake in our sustainability performance that directly impacts them. We have been and continue to report quarterly to our board of directors on our sustainability performance in our communities, including our business continuity and environmental compliance performance. In 2013, we named a Chief Sustainability Officer, and that supports my team and others, including our community investment team. We have built a sustainability leadership team, which is made up of senior leaders from all of our functional and operational areas across the organization. And what my team does is work with these individuals in terms of setting a baseline in terms of performance on sustainability, and help them build a roadmap on how they can further integrate sustainability into their operations, into their strategic planning, and into their decision making. This is the second year of this sustainability leadership team, and we're making some remarkable progress in terms of raising the visibility, awareness around sustainability, and making a difference in our operations overall. We've also built what we call a National Sustainability Council. We put a job posting out there, open to all team members, and these team members, with the support of their leaders, when they're on the council, can spend 5 to 10% of their paid working time focused in on sustainable initiatives, and that's across energy use, raising education and awareness, communications around sustainability, and also supporting our green teams. Now, our green teams have been in place. They're usually facilities-based. These are passionate individuals who volunteer their time to take on sustainability initiatives, and that could be anything from arranging a shoreline cleanup to sharing films together or doing clothing drives. There's no limit to what they can do, and we have people from our Sustainability Council that help them with arranging their initiatives and also tracking and reporting the impacts that these actions have. Also, I think is very critical is listening to what our stakeholders have to say when it comes to our sustainability strategy and our reporting on that strategy. We have done a better job in the last few years in formalizing these stakeholder engagement processes, including earlier this year we held a panel with representatives from a number of stakeholder groups and had a very third-party led fulsome discussion on our sustainability strategy. And I will tell you that some of what I've shared with you today has been influenced by those discussions in terms of how we are communicating our strategy as well. So appreciative of those. It's very critical to learn from and collaborate with our stakeholders so we understand what is important to them and consider not only what's important to TELUS, but to what our stakeholders are interested in and what matters to them. In terms of governance, we release a sustainability report annually and have done for a number of years. We also are supporters of the United Nations Global Compact. We are active with the local chapter here in Canada, as demonstrated today, and in a number of ways. Now I'm going to tie those two things together and do a shameless plug for a program that will be upcoming through the Global Compact Network Canada, which is a peer review of sustainability reports. It's a fantastic program that is a way in which we have learned got direct feedback on our reporting and been able to incorporate that feedback in trying to make our disclosure more friendly for our stakeholders. And I encourage all of you and your organizations, if you're engaged in sustainability reporting, to take part in this program. It takes a bit of time for you to invest in reviewing others' reports, but I think that's a valuable exercise in terms of benchmarking, and then the direct feedback that you get on your own report is very valuable. So there you go. That's one way in which we collaborate with the Global Compact Network Canada.
Thank you, Jeff. It's yeah, that program starts early September, so if you're interested, we will. It's just the general email you can contact, and we'll make that happen. Thank you.
Oh yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for enabling that. It's been we've partaken in that a few times over the last few years, and it's been very valuable for us.
I actually have 4 questions from the chat log. So
okay.
I'm going to ask you some of those. So the first
Sure.
one has to do with cybersecurity. So as you know, you did mention this in your presentation, but it's becoming a huge issue for companies, both in terms of technology and executive and board governance. Can you tell us how TELUS is tackling cybersecurity, both in what you're planning and what you decide to be transparent about?
Okay, well, I'll do my best. I'm certainly not a cybersecurity expert.
Cybersecurity and what are you guys doing about that is the question.
So the first thing I am aware of is, we are, of course, employing the latest technologies to, protect our networks, and we're running simulations to ensure that, these things can't get through to our networks. They're increasing. So, I have faith. We have a chief security officer that's in place that leads these efforts. And in terms of another thing that's happening too is we're raising awareness internally, as well as increased communications around being responsible as team members to, say, not click on a phishing email or things like that. So that's raised in terms of awareness there too. We also collaborate with many others to learn the best practices that are out there. But we also, include as part of our sustainability report what you can classify as a transparency report, where we provide clear statistics and details on the requests for access to, say, customer information, and we're very transparent about that and the laws that go along with that, so that our stakeholders understand what their rights are and what the laws say, and then we disclose statistics around that. And we've done that for the past few years as well. So if you look for a section called Transparency in our sustainability report, you can find all of that detail there.
Okay, great, thank you. I know that's a tough issue, so thanks for sharing that. Another question we got from the chat log was regarding your community investment. So the question is, I know you said it's a local community, but the question is, how do you identify which projects to work on?
Mm-hmm.
And do you work with, let's say, a local community organization or institution? Do you work with a collaboration model? I guess the process of choosing those local charities to participate and volunteer and give money to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'll answer that in a couple of ways. So what was being referred to was our community board model. So these community boards are funded, and then these community boards, which are made up of more than 60% actually, local community members, they decide, so people will apply for grants from this program through their local community board, and then these individuals will match, have a session where they prioritize and decide which of the grant applicants become funded. And to put some context around that as well, these asks must fit within our, align with our business strategy, which, as I mentioned, is focused in on the health and the environment and youth. And so there is some criteria that needs to be met through the grant application process. On top of that, which I haven't really talked about much, is we have, on a broader scale, built partnerships with several organizations that are very strategic. Now, I'll give you some examples that I'm more familiar with because of the focus of my team on the environment. But, for example, we've just launched and announced a partnership with the Nature Conservancy of Canada that over 3 years will become their technology partner.
Cool.
And again, if you look at our TELUS's YouTube feed, probably even on my Twitter feed, I'm sure I've tweeted the link out, sort of a cool 3-4 minute video on how the technology that we have can enable organizations such as the NCC to carry out their mandate. We have similar partnerships with Tree Canada, the WWF, and others, and those are very strategic to see how TELUS and our technology and our funding can help those organizations meet their goals as well. So that's a different aspect of our community investment program. But we do have, a strategy and sort of pillars that are similar to what I've shared here today, where we focus our community investment initiatives.
Cool. Sounds like a lot of work has been put into finding those collaborations, so they're very thought out. Another question we received was, have you signed up for the United Nations Global Compact Women Empowerment Principles? So I think the notion of gender equality and women empowerment principles.
So officially, we have not, although it's a very interesting question. So we have it before our CEO currently. So
okay.
I hope I can answer yes to that question soon. So, yeah. And you know what? It's not just based on something that we want to do and feel like we can support, but it's from questions like this that we've been receiving more of that's really prompted us to action there. So I appreciate that, and yeah, hopefully we'll have that signature soon.
Yeah, great. Now we have 2 more questions, and we have about 5 more minutes. So the next question would be, how do you tie, and kind of context, I'll say a little bit after this too, how do you tie your intended social impact with the SDGs in your planning and communication reporting? And just to kind of give some context, Jeff actually spoke at our SDGs reporting training yesterday and went through how he does tie these, so we'll have a good answer for this one.
Yeah, good stuff, right? Now I only have a couple minutes to just talk about it.
I know, right?
So, it's been a long process, and I'll summarize it quickly by saying, we needed to, number one, educate ourselves and familiarize ourselves with the Sustainable Development Goals. Not only the goals themselves, but also the targets that are associated with them. So even though there's 17 SDGs and there's 169 targets as well. And my experience tells me that if you just look at, one of the SDGs, let's pick on no poverty.
Yep.
You think that, okay, well, that program that we already have going will support no poverty. But if you peel the onion back a little bit and look at the targets, is your program supporting one of the targets and goals that underlie the SDGs? So it's a big education and awareness component. And not only do the practitioners within your organization need to understand that, then you need to raise that education and awareness across the organization, including with your executives and board, if applicable as well. So I'll start by saying that. Then we went through an exercise really of, okay, what are we doing currently, and how does that map to each of the SDGs or some of the SDGs? So what we landed on, and I'll just wrap it up here, is that we believe that a number of our programs, some of which I referenced today, support 6 of the SDGs. So what we have done is we have disclosed that in our sustainability report, and also created a table that talks about the SDG, the initiatives that we have underway, and then the impact that we can have on one of the targets that underpins the SDGs itself. So I encourage you to look at that. And believe me, we have a long ways to go, and we'll continue to refine our strategy and continue to educate our team and other stakeholders on the SDGs.
Great. So the last question, and it's good we have about 2 minutes left. Has there been any consideration for a more global approach, kind of rather than remaining kind of give where you live philosophy, especially as the world is becoming more borderless and as Canadians are becoming more diverse and globally minded? So more of a global approach, I guess. Have you considered that, and what are you doing to promote that? Or is it even on the radar? I think I know the answer to this, but
yeah, well, I mean, it's a good question, because I think I started off today just really talking about like a lot of the risks that we face here in Canada broadly, and in our industry broadly. They apply globally as well, for sure. Climate change is a great example of that, of course. So, you know, I think our focus is within Canada. However, we pay a lot of attention to, well, we have a TELUS International as well that services a number of other companies across the globe in those areas in which we have operations globally. We also give where we live. So whether that be in Eastern Europe or in Asia or in Central America, where we have these operations, we are giving where we live there as well. So, excuse me. We have a global context, but we do focus our efforts locally, and we tie the two together when we can.
Okay, great. So I think that wraps up the question time, and it's 1 o'clock. So I think that the key thing too is the notion of using the digital world to help and not hinder society, and using that for social impact. So I think TELUS is doing a great job, and on behalf of the Global Compact Network Canada, I wanted to thank you for your continued support in being an inspiration for other corporate citizens and sustainability enthusiasts. So thank you so much. And yeah, that concludes the webinar. Thank you for all the participants and listening in as well.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity again, and I encourage anyone to reach out to me with questions, additional questions, or feedback. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.